the lapels be meet right there, and the corners of the collars be meeting right there. And so I'm going to start with the collar again. I'm only going to pin and be concerned with the collar. All of that fabric goes towards the lapel. It should be 2, 4, 6 layers of fabric all the way on that side. And so we're going to start at that point, go around the collar like this. So again, I'm going to pin in any point where I need to make sure that these two raw edges stay close to each other. And again, they should be cut from the same pattern for you guys. So we want to just make sure that we stick to that. And if something is happening here, it's a red flag. You know, check on it, check your pattern. If something's not right, maybe it was a sewing thing. Again, here we go. Everything's meeting up nicely here. My lapel ends are meeting. But again, I want to push all those 6 layers of fabric away. All I want to sew through is the 2 layers of the collar. All right, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to sew from this edge. Doesn't matter which edge I sew through, or which side I sew through rather, because they're both pretty much the same shape. Again, I'm going to put my needle in right where that seam ended that I just sewed, the collar. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple stitches forward, a couple stitches back. Careful not to cross over. A couple more stitches, go down to number 1. 1 diagonal stitch. I'm going to do 2 diagonal stitches here because this is a thick fabric. Down to a number 1 stitch. When you do these diagonals, make sure you're careful that where you stop is a 1/2 inch from the edge, because you want these to be even. If they're not even, they're going to look funny because they're framing the face. So here again, I'm stopping right where that last seam ends, and you can see it, especially if you're sewing from the interfacing side. Here I've done, I've worked in black, so if I sewed from this side, it would have been really kind of hard for me to see that point, so I would have put a pin in there. So now, again, I'm going to move all that fabric to the other side, and I'm going to sew the lapels, but I'm going to start at that exact same point. And again, the reason we can't quite go over that point is because all that excess fabric has to kind of open up like a flower. It needs to be able to spread, and if we sewed straight over that, it wouldn't open up and you'll get a big giant pucker. You're welcome to try it and prove me wrong, but I guarantee. So again, I'm going to start right where I left off. Can't quite see because the lights over here, but forward a few stitches, backwards a few stitches. I'm still down at 1. Stay down. I didn't move it back up to 2, so I'm going to stay here at this 1. Again, 2 diagonal stitches here, 1, 2, and then I can go down. This could be pinned, that would be very helpful. And I will show you in a second that lining thing again as well. It's sloppy. Another good reason to leave an inch on the bottom is if the hems are off, which mine are happening a little bit off today, and I think it might be a little bit because of this corduroy has a little stretch to it. That can happen sometimes. So I'll show you the lining trick at the end when we're finished, but that is the same thing as I showed you before, but I'll show you how it works with the lining. So now I want to do the other lapel side. So again, all that fabric goes towards the collar. We're going to start right at that point. Put some pins in to make sure everything's matching up the way we want it to. All the way down to here. Pinning also will eliminate any of that stuff that happened. Like I probably could have absorbed that 1 inch thing happening that on the other side by pinning it carefully, which I didn't. So again, starting at this point, making sure I'm not catching any of that other side of any of that collar. You can actually put the needle in right at that point if you can see it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Two diagonal stitches for this fabric. My hems are gonna be uneven on this jacket. I'm telling you right now. Okay. Before I go ahead and really clip too much, I can flip this out. Now, you want to keep in mind that the points are not going to be pointy. So I'm just going to do this quick. And what I'm checking for is that the connection point is not opening up and also isn't puckering too much. So that one's cool. I can actually trim this away now. And again, this is a slightly bulkier fabric. It's definitely bulkier than the cotton. If you choose to do something in a wool or like this, a corduroy or a velvet or something like that, you probably are going to want to choose to trim away more than just the tips here. Like I said, you can trim away inside this point here, but please be careful if you do get in here, you know, before you cut, know where you're cutting, know where you're aiming. If you're using the same color of thread as I am, just be very careful. Don't cut unless you absolutely are certain that you want to cut it. But you can actually trim all of these down to really get, you know, eliminate some of that bulk. But like I said, if you cut into it too much, it's end days for this jacket. I'm gonna have to start over because there's really not much you can do to salvage it. Because those points are crossing like that, once you cut in somewhere, you can't really grab any space from the other side to like compensate or fix it, if that makes sense. As you can see, there's a lot of opportunity to trim out, and it's actually a really good habit, not just with you know, bulky stuff, but it's a good habit just in any garment to kind of trim. It releases certain things and it makes everything lay a lot nicer and smoother. Everything seems to be clipped in on there. All right, so again, can double check it. I'm actually going to sew together my side seam though on the jacket. I'll just flip it out just to check it. I want to see what it looks like. Corner you want to flip it, trim it. Nice sharp points. Even on this corduroy, you can see how nice the points are. Same thing down here. So everything's looking pretty good so far. Just want to check and see how it's looking even before I... And pressing everything will also help, so I'll do that in a second. Okay, so everything looks like the collar looks good. Everything's moving okay, so good. We can put our side seams together. My lining first. Now the way that these linings are put in a lot of different ways, kind of winging it a little bit on this sense because I usually would put my side seams together first, but I'm pretty sure it won't be a problem. But there are ways, with the way I'm doing it right now, I would have to hand sew in the bottom of my lining and also probably my armholes of the lining, not of the jacket. The jacket should be machine sewn so that it's, you know, stable and kind of solid. And again, right sides together for the side seam. again, pinning that at the bottom, I think if I had just sewn that, it probably wouldn't have evened out. It's a little bit of the fabric thing, but it also, you know, it really does help to pin as you go. So that is the one side. What I'm doing is actually making it really hard for myself to press this nicely later, but like I said, I just want to show you guys. So really, you should be pressing along the way so that this, you know, you don't have to get inside of all this. Okay, so last two seams for this side seam here. Last actual jacket side seam. So again, just pin at the bottom here. Line to the center. What you'll notice too is with this, I'm having a problem a little bit, basically, but I'm working with it. I'm trying to stretch out my seam. You don't want to do this too dramatically, or you'll get puckers in your actual thing. Here I'm a little off again on my seam. That's okay. It'll be absorbed into the hem, so it's not the end of the world when that happens. But again, if this was my muslin, I would then go to my my pattern and fix it. Okay, so we now have a full jacket. I'm just going to press this out so that the reveal is a little bit more exciting. It really does look nice.
It does look good.
When it's nice and pressed.
Before washing, being soft. Have you ever made that braces? But now.
What you can do is, if you notice, and I'll show you guys this, but you can actually press up the jacket lining and the lining, I'm sorry, the jacket and the lining at the hem. According to where you sew that bottom piece of the lining, but you would hand stitch this in, but you would just kind of keep it floating, again, so that there's a little bit of room for the body to move. So if you do look at other jackets, they usually have the lining kind of, it's not sewn like in a seam, it's kind of floating a little like that, you see? And what you do is you peel it up and you would hand stitch it here, so there's this kind of pillowing, and that way if it moves up and down, you know, you kind of hand stitch it here, and you're sewing it to the hem so you can actually keep that completely invisible from the outside. But that way the body has a little bit more room again. So you have it horizontally a little space here, as well as vertically a little bit of space to move around with. So